My next patron question is from Joey, who wants to know, as an up-and-coming animation historian, are there any movies with animated special effects, whether with stop motion or with CGI, that I should watch for historical reasons? If so, which ones would you recommend? If you want to understand the history of animation, it's definitely important to not only look at animated features, but live-action films that utilize special effects as an important tool in their story, particularly the kinds of special effects that bring animated characters to life. The first film that many will obviously and understandably bring up is King Kong, which utilized Willis O'Brien's incredible stop-motion animation to bring that giant gorilla and the dinosaurs of Skull Island to the screen. Part of the wonder of King Kong is the effects work brought a lot of expression to Kong and showed the endless imagination on screen. However, even predating King Kong were films made during the silent film era. Willis O'Brien's The Ghost of Slumber Mountain featured people interacting with stop-motion animated dinosaurs, and then he created similar effects for The Lost World. These projects are basically precursors to what would eventually be accomplished in King Kong. As I mentioned in a recent video I did on the history of the eighth wonder of the world, that film would prove highly influential to later stop-motion artists, most notably Ray Harryhausen. He was instantly enchanted by the effects when he saw the movie at 13 years old, and then later got the opportunity to work with O'Brien on Mighty Joe Young. Harryhausen would become a prominent name in that field, particularly on movies like Jason the Argonauts, The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and Clash of the Titans. Another filmmaker who specialized in combining live action with wondrous special effects was Czech director Karel Zeman. With his animation techniques, he created some impressive worlds, both born out of his own imagination and inspired by his favorite authors. He made films like The Fabulous Baron Munchausen and Invention for Destruction, the latter of which was released in the United States under the title The Fabulous World of Jules Verne. Several notable filmmakers have cited Zeman as an influence, including Tim Burton and Terry Gilliam. You especially see a lot of Zeman's style in Wes Anderson's movies, with The Life Aquatic and its undersea world and creatures especially owing a lot to him. Joey specified films with stop motion and CG effects in his question, but it's also important to look at movies that seamlessly blended live action with hand-drawn animation. Disney would of course do this a lot in movies like The Three Caballeros, Mary Poppins, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that movie they don't like people talking about, but is nonetheless a major part of their development in combining animation with live action, Song of the South. But they were not the only ones, as the MGM musical Anchors Away has a famous scene featuring Gene Kelly dancing with Jerry the Mouse. Funnily enough, the original idea was to use Mickey Mouse in that sequence because I guess someone at MGM forgot they already had a popular mouse they could use. But Disney decided not to loan out Mickey for that film. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers would make The Incredible Mr. Limpet, a Don Knotts comedy that combined hand-drawn animation with live action. Then you have the rise of computer-generated effects. While not the first to use CG effects, Tron definitely got the ball rolling and showing it could be used as a major filmmaking and storytelling tool. Later on, you have movies like The Abyss, Terminator 2, and Jurassic Park, which used computer effects in innovative ways. The Mask used those effects to give Jim Carrey the ability to pull off all kinds of cartoony gags, Casper created entire ghosts for the actors to interact with, and Stuart Little used CG effects to make its appealing-looking lead character and have it be believable that this mouse is talking to the human family who adopted him. Meanwhile, a documentary I highly recommend watching is Light and Magic on Disney+. It goes into the history of Industrial Light and Magic, the special effects company founded by George Lucas, and which will play a pivotal role in shaping effects production throughout the industry. The series interviews all kinds of wizards and goes in depth on what went into creating those effects, as well as the shift from using stop motion to primarily CG effects. Of course, I'm just scratching the surface here when talking about live-action films where animation played a pivotal role in showing the endless imagination of the filmmakers and special effects artists. It's been a pivotal part of filmmaking since the early days of cinema, from George Méliès to George Pal. Steven Spielberg himself has said that animation is a necessary component for any filmmaker to understand due to the way animators can visualize anything that comes into their mind. I think these films I mentioned are a good starting point, and then you can jump off from there to find other ones. Thank you for your question, Joey.